Alright guys, today's video we are going to replace the stock seat with a set of seats from Corbeau with the Corbeau bracket as well. So not only are we going to replace the seat, but I'm going to show you the way that I was able to keep the seat belt and the airbag light off as well. But before we get started, really quick, to remove the stock seat is really easy. You just pop these little clips off right here, two 14mm bolts in the back, two 14mm in the front. But I am running a pair of seat jackers, which I do recommend because it does make the seating position a lot more comfortable. But once you do have all that stuff removed, unplug the plugs and then the seat just easily comes out. And also the headrest, is a lot easier to remove the seat from the door space when you remove the headrest. So to compare the Corbeau with the stock seat is higher right now just because the bracket isn't installed. But to quickly go over, I went with the Corbeau RRX in a gray plaid, and these are reclinable. So you do have all leather around it, and then the middle is going to be a gray plaid cloth. And I went this route just because I feel like the plaid is going to match the gray and black interior inside. And plus, I just like the way it looks. It looks more like an actual bucket seat. You have a little bit of a high bolster here as well as on the sides. You have the Corbeau in the center, and then you have a little nice Corbeau here on the 4-point harness. It's actually a 5-point harness because you do have the insert down here too as well. So it is pretty nice. And then the back side, there is a Corbeau symbol too here as well. And if you do get the seat bracket from Corbeau, it is a direct bolt-in, so no modification is needed. It is very simple to install. You do have the stock seat belt location there. When you're going to transfer everything over, the seat bolts on top of these rails and it does move back and forth. So like I mentioned, it is a direct bolt-in. So it does bolt in directly to the stock locations, and if you don't have a pair of seat jackers, it still does reach the stock point on there. Under the seat, you're gonna have 4 of these bolts here. They're already threaded inside. This is where it's going to mount on top of the rail. You're going to use the very forward position here and then the very rear position there. So once you do line up the bracket up to the seat, it's very easy to mount to the actual seat. With the mounting brackets installed, you can tell that both seats are roughly the same height on the headrest portion, but where it's lower is on the bottom cushion. So on towards the back, it's roughly maybe an inch or so lower. Then up front where your knees are gonna go, it's about almost 2 inches. So with the seat jackers, it's probably gonna be pretty comfortable. And then I'm roughly 5'7", 150-ish, and on the sides here, it does hug a little bit, so I'm roughly like a 32, 31 inch waist. It does hug you here, but it does feel comfortable. And on the sides, especially when you're turning, it does feel pretty comfortable. So when compared to the stock seat, I feel like this is just more cushy. This is probably more firm for sure, but it's still pretty comfortable. Alright, so this is me sitting in the seat. Like I mentioned, I am 5'7", so if you do want to have the harnesses, this is roughly where your shoulder will be if you are the same height as me. So like I mentioned, Corbeau did a great job about keeping everything super simple and completely bolt-in. So that's the easy part. The harder part, or more detailed part, is to actually transfer everything over from the stock seat, essentially to keep the airbag and the seat belt light off. So what I'm talking about is you're gonna transfer over the buckle to that bracket there. But if you didn't know, the stock seats actually have a side airbag here in the actual seat. So I'm not going to move that over, obviously, because you can't put it here on this seat. So that does still stay on the stock seat, but I will be able to still keep the airbag light off, and I'll show you how. All right, so this is the underneath of the driver's side only. The passenger is gonna be different, completely different than the driver's side. The driver's side is a lot easier, but you do have the airbag wire here. Then this is a sensor that senses the seating position of how forward or far back you are from the steering wheel, so that way the airbag doesn't just deploy in your face and hit you at full force, is what I believe that does. And then you have the main plug for the seatbelt buckle. So I'm gonna remove the seatbelt buckle and transfer that over along with the other wires as well. So removing the buckle and the other wires is pretty easy. Just remove the bolt for the seatbelt buckle and then unplug the wires and they come right off. Next up is the little sensor here. So I believe it's a torque bit. So it's going to be a size 30. Yeah, 30. So you're just going to want to remove it. So once you have the sensor unbolted, you're just going to slide it up. So it's a magnet that is ran down this rail right here. So I'm gonna have to mount it probably to the outside rail on the seat, but let's see. So I have the seatbelt buckle here. I didn't tighten it all the way down because once it's there, it stays tight, versus the other one, it can kind of move back and forth, but once you do tighten it down, it's gonna stay in that position. I'm just not really too sure where exactly I want it yet. And then the wires, I just ran and I clipped the clip to one of these little springs here, and then I'm going to mount this probably right here, or just somewhere stating that way it's easier. All right, so once you have everything bolted and stuff like that, next is the key portion of keeping the airbag light off. And what you're going to do is on the SRS or the airbag light on the truck harness is the yellow plug, and you're going to get some resistors, and specifically they have to be 2.4 ohm resistors. And you're going to put that resistor here into the plug, and I'll show you how. Like in a 50 or 100 pack or 100 pieces, you only need one per side. So going to grab one, and then you're going to bend it into a U shape like so, if you can see that. So you bend it into a U shape, and then what you're going to do is that with the plug, you're going to plug it into the two slots here, and you're just going to push it all the way down. And I usually push it a little bit more to bend it so that way it does sit flush in the plug and doesn't protrude out. And I finish it off with some electrical tape so that way it doesn't touch anything. All right, so that's pretty much it for the driver's side. So if you are wondering what that resistor does in the airbag plug, the airbag system needs a continuing line of power, pretty much meaning that if that line of power is broken, then it's going to trip off the airbag light. So what that resistor does is that it keeps that line of power going. And you obviously won't have the airbag in the seat anymore, but all the other airbags in the truck still do work, so don't worry about that. But the passenger side is going to be a little bit more detailed, as in like you have to move kind of like a lot more stuff over. It's actually a little bit more complicated than the driver's side, so let's go ahead and move on to that. Wow, man, it looks so good. So it just looks so much better, and it flows with the interior. I really do wish the stock seats came black. Really, I wish the entire interior came black on this truck, but it is what it is. I can just change everything up. So like I mentioned, everything does bolt in completely without any modification, and the back sits good too as well. So man, I just can't wait to get the second one in, so let's go ahead and get started on that one. Now I have the passenger stock seat here, passenger Corbeau, and the passenger side's a little bit different than the driver's side. Well, actually a lot different. It has the airbag plug here, the gray plug for the seatbelt. However, it does run the line into this box here. So this box then has a wire that runs to 4 different sensors. So there's 1, 2, 3, and 4. And what those sensors are is when someone's in the seat, it turns on the airbag. And then the opposite, when someone's off the seat, when it can't detect any weight, it turns off the airbag. So in order to, keep the airbag and the seatbelt light off, you pretty much have to take those and then put them into there. So this is the first time round doing this, so I'm hoping that I can just remove the sensors, and I'm going to have to remove the stock rails from the seat with these torque bits here, and then I can easily access those sensors by just unscrewing them, and let's hope that this works. Alright, so my assumption is correct. You're just going to remove these torque bits that are on the side here for this rail for the slider. So you do have 2 up front, then you have 3 in the back. So 1 is hidden behind the seatbelt bracket, which is here, and then you do have to remove the plastic piece that goes behind here. And it's just 1 screw in the back, a clip right here, and then you just slide this portion forward. Alright, so I didn't record this portion because it took a lot longer than I thought to figure it out, but I figured it out. So, to remove the rails from the frame, it's these T30 torque bits, 2 up front, 3 on the back, same thing for the other side. Then to remove these sensors that are on each corner, I thought it was just these little 2 screws, but it's not. You have to access the side in order to get these torque bits that are on the side of each one, and those are going to be a T27. And for the 2 front ones, you have to remove these little clips that are on the frame that hold the cover on, and once you do that, you can kind of move the foam to access the screw. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that, remove all 4, transfer them over so I can get the seat back in. I have everything removed now. The seatbelt buckle, all the plugs, and this little box, just going to remove it from the bracket and then zip tie them to the seat. And then over here I have all the sensors that are front and back. So the main goal is to keep the airbag light off. So I'm not really worried about having the sensors function in a way of like detecting the weight or not. I'm actually hoping that it detects the weight constantly, that way the passenger airbag is on. And in my truck, I actually have that little sensor, that little light that turns on, showing that if the passenger airbag is on or off. So I'm hoping it stays on, but I'm gonna go ahead and finish up and then let's see if this works. Oh man, so this took a lot longer than I wanted to, but this is what I came up with. I have 1 sensor on each corner, and I have them zip tied to the bracket and not the actual seat. So not really too sure how these sensors work. If this doesn't turn on the airbag or detect some kind of weight or whatever, I'm just going to zip tie these really tight. I feel like these are the ones that actually detect the weight because this was up against the stock seat on there. And then I have the box zip tied there, and then the buckle mounted there. So there's only 1 plug left, which plugs into the harness under the seat. And then I did the same thing with the resistor on the passenger side. So now let's go ahead and finish this up for sure, get this bolted in and take it for a drive. All right, so it's been a couple of days because I've been doing other stuff, but it came to my mind that it should be obvious that, of course, the sensors won't work if they're not installed correctly or they don't detect any weight. So I was trying to figure out the best way to do this, you know, keep it clean without having to cut anything or stuff like that, or modify the sensors, because if I ever want to go back to stock seats, I want to be able to mount them correctly and keep it pretty much stock. So let me show you what I did. All right, I've removed the sensors from the bracket, but I have them here on the floor. The two back ones here on the left, two front ones on the right. So the two back ones, I put hose clamps. So I have two of them, when technically you could just use one longer one. But like I said, I was trying to just not cut anything, and I actually just tried to drill a hole right there so I can make the hose clamp just go around the sensor itself. But so I'm keeping the brackets on there, the stock ones, and I have, like I said, two hose clamps. So you can see that the airbag, or the passenger airbag, is off. And now I'm just going to quickly tighten these, and it doesn't take too much. So I tightened it a couple turns. Now the airbag should just turn on here hopefully soon. Well, there you go. So the airbag is on, like I said. Now I'm just going to put these sensors back and zip tie them there. And in order for you to see that actual light there, the seatbelt has to be plugged in. And yeah, so that's 100% how you do it. And that's the easier way without having to cut anything. Like I mentioned, I'm just going to zip tie them to the actual bracket again and just keep them there. So alright, so that's finally it. As you can see, I don't have the airbag light on. It is just the seatbelt, but I'm just gonna plug in my seatbelt really quick, and now all the lights are off now, so that's a good thing. Now the passenger side, the airbag light is gonna always be on, because I use the hose clamps to keep the airbag light on, or to keep the airbags on the passenger side, because you still want the, you know, the side curtain and the front one to still deploy if someone's sitting down, obviously. And then I do have the seatbelt light on, but if someone's sitting down and they put the seatbelt on, it will go off like normal. So I run without the seatbelt plugged in, and the light is still gonna stay on, and the chime does go off, especially at the very beginning. It does go off for a little bit, but eventually it does turn off. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm going to end the video here. However, let me show you something that I have coming up for the next video, and this is from Car Trim Home, and I will be installing this thing next. All right, so that's pretty much it. I hope this helps any second gen out there that's trying to put aftermarket seats into their truck. This should work from 05 to 2015. I'm not too sure about third gens, but it might roughly be the same. Like I mentioned, all the airbags still do work like they're supposed to. I just won't have the airbags in the actual seat. So other than that, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.